But in regard to John Waters movies, how do you define that?
I define it in this scenario as in that it didn't make its budget back.
I think a lot of that has to do with the rating.
Yeah.
Right, yes. But at the same time, I think it's worth us having this conversation. It's just, usually we are talking about movies that, quote unquote, were successes in spite of the challenges that they were faced with.
Definitely falls under the heading of a cult film.
Yeah, it's definitely a cult
Yeah.
classic. So.
If you ever get the DVD for A Dirty Shame, make sure you get the NC-17 version. I'll tell you why. Ask me why.
Oh, yeah. We'll get into that.
Welcome to Certain POVs, Another Pass podcast with Case and Sam. This week is a 5th episode, so we're talking about a movie that overcame adversity. Let's celebrate the creativity of the filmmakers.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Another Pass podcast. I'm Case Aiken, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Sam Alisea.
Hi.
And today, we're talking about a work of cinema that I'm trying to avoid saying too many swear words at the very beginning of episodes anymore, because it turns out that restricts your monetization on YouTube. It's specifically like the first minute. So I'm like, I can't even reference some of the things I need to right now. Today we're talking about a movie that earned an NC-17 rating despite the fact that it was shooting for an R, and as a result had some work to do to make it a cult classic. Because today we're talking about A Dirty Shame. And to have that conversation, we are joined by Wes Johnson.
Howdy.
Now, Wes, you are a prolific actor and voice actor who I know from us working together on Starship Farragut, specifically the latest production, Farragut
A
Forward.
lot more latex usually on my face at that point.
That's true. You normally are a Klingon when I'm talking to you.
Which is a lot of fun.
And as a result, a captive audience for me.
It's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed doing that. I've enjoyed being a Klingon and learning how to re-speak once I get prosthetic teeth put in. You'd be very surprised at the voices that you might practice, thinking you will be a Klingon, and then you put the teeth in. You have to make new sounds like a ventriloquist would, so that you can, using G's and D's and things of that sort in places of other things. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, you have to make all kinds of weird sounds, which you're plenty familiar with since you have a huge career just making all kinds of weird sounds.
Yeah. 100 some odd different video game voiceovers. Some that you might have known, like Sheogorath, Daedric Prince of Madness, or Lucy and the Chance, The Dark Brotherhood, or Mo Cronin from Diamond City. Fallout's very big right now, you know. So I played a lot of super mutants and things like that. So yeah, A Dirty Shame, I played a different kind of mutant by the name of, well, since we're still in the first minute, let's just call him Triple F, and we'll get to more of that later.
We're clear at the first minute. I was actually getting ready to name drop that one. Because, yeah, in today's movie, you play the part of Fat Fuck Frank.
Yes, and at the time, I weighed about 200 pounds more than I weigh right now. Right now, I could probably play Fit Fuck Frank. But as you can see, in the background with Tracy Ullman and Selma Blair on the back of Ray Ray's truck. Ray Ray, of course, was being played by Johnny Knoxville. And I was a big, heavy-set guy, and it was fun auditions. I can tell you more about that and the whole process, the whole shebang, if you'd like.
Yeah, I want to hear about all of that.
Yeah.
Why don't we just knock out some of the basic details for people who are not familiar with this movie? A Dirty Shame is a 2004 John Waters comedy, I guess I would call
Comedy
it.
and educational film.
Yeah. Written and directed by John Waters, hometown hero for all us Maryland people. And it is starring Tracy Ullman, Johnny Knoxville, Selma Blair, Chris Isaac. And here's the weird spot on this one, which is that this is a 5th episode, so we are talking about a movie that succeeded in spite of the challenges in front of it. This movie is a cult classic. It was not a commercial success. So it was a $15 million budget and a box office of only $1.9 million. But there's reasons for that, and we will get into that when we talk about the movie.
When I went to see it at a multiplex with some family members, they had an armed guard inside the theater to make sure that anyone who came in was of age. An armed guard. They don't have them outside of theaters these days, but an armed guard was keeping people from coming in the theater, which can tend to, sedate the box office.
Yeah. I mean, especially because it ended up with an NC-17 rating, which means that it's not even you can come with your parents. Like, if you're underage, you're not supposed to be.
Yeah, you can't. Under 18, under
Yeah.
17, not admitted. And, I blame Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson.
I know what you mean, but for people who are not as old as I am, why don't you explain?
Well, the Super Bowl took place a day before A Dirty Shame went in front of the review board. A day before. And in this Super Bowl, which was live, and you had Janet Jackson performing live on stage, Justin Timberlake reaches up, grabs a hold of her top, and we have a wardrobe malfunction where he rips a part of it off, exposing her breasts on national TV to a nation that came there only for the violence, not for the sex. And they were aghast, I tell you. And we had a very Republican right-wing government in place at the time. And we must put a stop to this. Breasts in public cannot happen. And the next day, this review board gets a chance to see John's film. And he is contractually obligated to turn in an R-rated film. Now, if you look at a bunch of movies that are out there, there's just like a small little bit of nudity, very small bit of nudity, not hardly anything. It's all talk. It's basically like Zach and Miri make a porno, which gets an R rating, but a few years later, away from the heat of this big Super Bowl unveiling. But basically, they say, no, we're not giving it the R. It's going to be an NC-17. And John comes in and says, well, what can I do? I mean, what edits can I make? I have to turn in an R-rated film. What edits can I make in order to secure the R rating? They said, we stopped taking notes after the first 10 minutes. So
Wow.
that was it. That was basically it. The cut that John wanted to do now was an NC-17. He still had to come up with an R-rated version, which he did. It might as well have been something that could have been on one of these, Hallmark Channel television stations. The way they cut it up, I became Fat Freak Frank. They cut out a whole bunch of scenes, blurred a kid's finger. I'm not going to tell you which one it was. You get the idea. And they went through this whole thing. They sanitized it up as best you possibly could in a movie that basically talks about sexual addiction. They called it the neuter edition because there are sex addicts and then there are the neuters. And the neuters, of course, hate sex. The neuters are very repressed. So John had to put out the neuter edition. The NC-17 version was the one that came out in theaters. But then again, there were so few theaters that would actually play it. They have rules against it. And if they did have it in a multiplex, it had to be under guard. So I was quite amused, by the way, by this Indian couple who, when they looked at the cover of A Dirty Shame, and if you've ever seen it, it almost looks like a Bollywood poster. So much so that I think these people thought they were coming into a Bollywood scene. And in the first scene where in the middle of traffic, spoilers, Johnny Knoxville goes down on Tracy Ullman in the front seat of her car in the middle of a traffic jam. They get up and go walking out, highly offended. You could see nostrils of flaring and eyes, and this is not Bollywood. No one was even singing, and out they went. So for me, I thought that was incredibly funny. And I had seen the movie already about 4 times at different premieres, once in Baltimore at the Senator, which was amazing. We had a big party at a museum afterwards, and I got to meet all the original Dreamlanders, which was a dream come true. And then up in New York City was a great one. And afterwards, we had a party at this club, and there were all these naked, sweaty people with glitter on dancing up on this stage. And then they started making their way into a crowd, making their way out into the crowd. And I don't care how progressive you think you are or how into this sort of scene you might think you are. I just know that people parted like the Red Sea, because when a sweaty, naked person covered in glitter is walking towards you, you will get out of the way, especially if you're wearing couture.
Yeah,
because you're never getting
glitter.
that out.
Yeah, you never get it out. Glitter never leaves.
Somebody else's sweat and glitter. How do you explain that when you get home? But that was pretty fun. And of course, there at the end of the evening, after all the actual celebs left, Geraldo Rivera showed up and pulled up into one of the booths nearby and started macking out with some woman. Like he had his tongue so far down her throat, you would have thought that it was Al Capone's secret vault. And it was all these people. We had just finished making a film about sex addiction, and we were all grossed out by him.
Wow. All these people. Watching this movie, by the way, I need just to mention this one before we get too far into it. Watching this movie, I need to remind myself always when I'm watching a John Waters movie that I'm going to know someone in the movie. And so I'm watching this movie, and of course I'm waiting to see you because I knew that you were in this movie. And then goddamn Dave Moretti shows up in it.
Yeah,
Out of
Dave
nowhere.
Moretti plays Mama Bear. Dave Moretti was one of the three bears and was amazing in this movie.
Yeah, listeners, Dave Moretti is the technical director on Farragut Forward, a carpenter extraordinaire at set making. Like, is a wizard at making these amazing sets on this modern Star Trek production that we're doing. And then I'm just like watching this movie, and it's just like, here's the three bears. Yes, it's those kind of bears.
John Waters described that as coming out of the third closet.
Yeah. It's like, have you met my husband? And I'm like, fucking Dave?
He's so great. Dave is fantastic in the movie, and Dave's a fantastic guy. And I was so happy to be able to see him again and start hanging out with him again on Farragut. I saw him at the John Waters Christmas show last year as well at the Birchmere. We always go out and go see John at his Christmas show, which is always very funny. John Waters' spoken word stuff is fantastic. And it was one of the first times he'd seen me since I lost all the weight. So I went and bought one of his books, and I took it over and I slid it in front of him. And he's like, who should I make it out to? And I said, could you make it out to Fat Fuck Frank? And he goes, is that you? I was like, yeah, that's me. Did you lose it on purpose? Yes. Oh, then congratulations. Very, very exciting. Cool stuff.
Yeah, very nice guy. I've met John once when I was working for Adam Shankman, and they had dinner together while working on Step Up to the Streets. I was his chauffeur for the evening. It was a very nice guy when I got to meet him.
It's sort of a surprise to a lot of people at what a gentleman he is.
Yeah.
Because they expect this radical guy, this crazy man, this radical guy. And maybe once upon a time he might have been, but John is just the coolest, nicest guy. Although I sent him a candle recently that I had specifically made that shows him in a holy position, and it says the Pope of Puke, the sainted John Waters. And I sent it to him, and it got sent back, returned to sender, because I think any box that shows up at his house, I would imagine that after Pink Flamingos, John's not opening any boxes that come in the mail.
Yeah.
Since someone mailed a turd, I would imagine he's probably had about 400 of those mailed to him over the years. So don't take any chances. You get a box in the mail, send that turd back. I'll have to wait until I see him in person to get him his candle.
Speaking of John Waters and your relationship with him, how did you get attached to this movie? Had you worked with John before? Or
no, auditioning through Pat Moran. And Pat is one of the original Dreamlander folks. I've been working and auditioning through her for years, and I finally got a chance to go in and do an audition there, and they called me back several times. I came back for the final callbacks, and I felt like I knew this guy. I felt like I knew who this guy was. I have a lot of brothers and cousins and things that are all bikers, and so I just channeled them. And when I get there for the audition at Pat's, first of all, I weighed 360 pounds. So they say she's on the fourth floor, or she was on the fourth floor, but there's a second floor part 2, and a third floor part 2, and a fourth floor part 2. So it's really about 6 to 7 flights of stairs you're taking to get up there. And they're looking for somebody by the name of Fat Fuck Frank. And here I am at 360 pounds. I'm passing the competition's dead bodies on the way up, because they're just not making it up there. So that cuts out half.
I was curious if the character was initially named Fat Fuck Frank, or if they
Yeah, he loves his alliterative names like that. And I get upstairs and I'm looking, and I realize there's a couple of real bikers there, because John sometimes does love authenticity. And one guy's name's Reaper and the other guy's name is Outcast, and they look mean. And I'm thinking, if he's going for authenticity, there's no way, because I'm coming in at this as from a funny angle. This is Stickles, and I got this kind of thing going on. Yeah, that's Fat Fuck Frank right there. So I go in and I audition, and John says, did you hear what he just did? He did it the way he did it when he came in the first time. That's all I want to do. I want to know if he can still do it. And then if he can change a little bit, I want. You'd be surprised at how many people come in and audition and want to show me what a good actor they are and change everything up all over again. And I thought, mental note for auditioning. Learned a little something from John right there. But I didn't think I was going to get the role. But I wanted it. I wanted it bad. I was a John Waters fan. I loved his work. I thought he was hilarious. I thought that he was edgy, and I knew he was legendary in Baltimore. I really wanted this role. I felt like I knew who this character was. And then I didn't hear anything for about a week or two. And I thought, oh. My wife's like, what's the matter? You seem bummed. I'm like, yeah, well, I broke my own rule. She said, what rule is that? I said, you go to an audition, you give it everything you've got, you live the role, and then you leave it behind. You turn around, you walk away. Cool guys don't look back at explosions. You get out of there, you go home, and you forget about it. I didn't forget about it. I made the mistake of wanting it. So you're sitting by the phone waiting for it to ring, like you're hoping you get a prom date, and you end up being a wallflower. So I said, here's what I'm going to do. She was going to go out for a little while. And I said, I'm just going to go take a nap. I'm going to go lay down. I'm going to take a nap, and I'm going to feel sorry for myself for a little while. When I wake up, wax on, wax off, it's all done. And I won't think about it ever again. Went in and took a nap. When I woke up, light on the answering machine service is flashing. I have a message. I check it, and it's Pat Moran's office. And I call up, and it's John Strawbridge. And he goes, Wes, how would you like to be our fat fuck? Normally, it's not the kind of question you ask somebody else, but it's delighted.
Right.
And I was very excited. And it led me into about a month and a half adventure that was the closest thing to the kind of camaraderie I felt when I was in high school, doing high school plays and productions and getting close with people that I've ever experienced on a set. It was really a cool, fun set.
Yeah, the movie strikes me as like it would just be fun to do. There's a lot of like big crowd scenes of everyone being excited. And even like the neuters, like I feel like those scenes would be a ton of fun to just do.
Suzanne Shepard, who played Tracy Ullman's mother, who was the leader of all the neuters, at first saw this script, came to Baltimore, looked at the script, and was like, hell to the no. And she got on a train and was heading back, and somebody talked to her and said, you may want to reconsider because this is fun and John is awesome. And she thought about it and thought about it, and she finally came back, and she ended up being not just perfect in the role, but a really fun, cool sport about it all too. To see her sitting there, this woman she was Carmela's mother in a soprano. She was in Goodfellas. She's one of the big drama teachers in New York City, really well known and well renowned, sitting there having coffee and just shooting the shit back and forth with Mink Stoll. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I like the cast is so good. I was honestly kind of shocked. So I hadn't seen this movie before we talked about doing it for the show. I remembered it.
Yeah.
Like I remembered the ads for it, and then I had read the book Screenplays, which is a book about selling screenplays. And Waters has a chapter in it and specifically talks about A Dirty Shame for that one. So it's always kind of stayed in the back of my mind because like I remember like things about that, and I reread that chapter specifically for this episode, but I hadn't actually seen the movie until this. And so then I start the movie and it's like, yeah, I kind of remember that it was Johnny Knoxville, but I didn't remember anything else about it. Then I start watching it and I'm like, oh, it's Tracy Ullman. Oh, and Selma Blair. Like, oh my God, like Jackie Hoffman's in it.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ, like all these amazing performers are in it.
Patty Hearst, man. You know, rehearsing at John Waters' house, you go downstairs, and if you go downstairs to use the lower bathroom, there's a shadow box on the wall that's filled with things from her days in the Symbionese Liberation Army, including the sunglasses she wore when she robbed the bank. Some cool things at John's house. You know, one room is just this library that would put any college professor to shame. All these books on a wall. And as John Waters said, if you go to somebody's house and you don't see books there, don't fuck them. And then you walk into another room and there's an electric chair, a real electric.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, so it's eclectic. It's very cool. And that's where we did our first read through, where there are only about 10 of us there at John's house, in that room with all the books. You know, the opening scene in the movie where Vaughn is in the bathroom and Tracy catches him?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
When they first read that, I'm sitting on the couch in between them. It felt like an awkward place to be. Just pretend I'm not here. But it was very cool. And then afterwards, Tracy was like, can I get a ride back to Flight 3 with you? And I'm like, did I clean the car? Did I clean the car? Yes, I cleaned the car. Good.
Sam, had you seen this movie before?
No, I hadn't. I vaguely remembered like commercials for it, and I love Tracy Ullman, like, and I love John Waters too. Like, I guess I would seeing 2 together, like, it, like, wasn't, like, on my radar, and so I was watching it, and I was like, the first, like, 5 minutes, I was like, "What the what?" And then by the time I was done, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I feel this rhythm, like, I get it." Like, if you watch enough John Waters movies, right, you, like, know the rhythm of it, and I mean, like, as a kid who grew up on, like, Hairspray and Crybaby, although Serial Mom is probably my favorite, you definitely, like, get the rhythm of him, and so, like, it was really interesting to watch because I was like, "Oh."
What's interesting about John's movies is that even though they have these controversial subjects, they have all these things going on, he's trying so hard to be a bad boy. There's a real innocence in some ways to some of these at the core of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
A
yeah.
sweetness and an innocence underneath of all of these things. And in each one of his movies, there is something along those lines.
I mean, yeah, the whole family learned how to orgasm in this one, so
Well, don't try the headbutting thing. That'll just
no,
No.
that was a terrible idea.
Yeah, but what a fun time the whole thing was, and to film all these things and to get a chance. Chris Isaac was a last minute addition to this
Oh
cast.
yeah.
Mm,
He was not the original Von Stickles. Do you know who the original Von Stickles was going to be?
No, no. Tell us.
no.
Paul Giamatti.
Oh right. Oh my God. I
Oh,
saw a note about that. That's so weird.
He was doing Sideways. Sideways is the
The wine one.
line one,
Yeah.
yeah, and it went long, and he couldn't get out of it, and so they had because of schedules, he couldn't do it. But he was really wanting to do it, but he couldn't. Then they bring Chris in. And I got to tell you, sitting with Chris Isaac at lunch, many nights, lunch or dinner, and it's always lunch, even if you're having it like 2 in the morning, where we did sometimes. And you and I would be dropping names like talking about Will or Johnny or any of the folks that we work with. He's dropping names like Roy Orbison and Paul McCartney and telling these tales. And we're all just like, tell me more. And at the rap party, they're doing karaoke. Chris Isaac gets up on stage and does karaoke to Wicked Game, which
wow.
which was way cool. And I'm shouting out, "You're no Chris Isaac." So you gotta be a smartass till the very end.
Now you got me wondering, like, are there any like big anecdotes that you haven't like thrown out that like just like fun moments on set or anything like that from the production?
Well, there are a couple. As you can see, this one right here, we're in the middle of the night out on Harford Road, right? It's like middle of the night. We're filming in the middle of the neighborhood. There's also a place out there called the Holiday House. It's a bar. And normally the bikers and all sorts of people go there. It's a place, like they say in It's Wonderful Life. It's a place where hard men get hard drinks and get drunk quick. So if you can see over my shoulder, you see the guy in the baby doll 90 right there? That is Alan Wendell. Alan Wendell is a fantastic guy. He's about 6'4". Older guy, played police officer there who liked to wear baby doll nighties. And he's standing out on the street in the middle of the night. And at one point, somebody walks up to him on the street and looks at him standing there wearing the nightie, looks around and he goes, "Are you in this?" Like, and one time I'm dressed up as Frank. And this is, by the way, this is my Robo cap that I wore in the movie. You can see it's right there. I still have it, but it doesn't quite look the same when I put it on now.
No, it's a little bit
I look
baggier.
Uber from, but this is my Robo cap. This is Frank's hat. Anyway, I'm sitting there wearing my leathers. We're doing our scenes at the back of the Holiday House, and they're setting up in the back. And so Alan and I are sitting out front. We each have a cup of coffee, and they've got the bar closed down. But this one guy comes shuffling on in. We'll call him Otis if you're a fan of Andy Griffith, but Otis is looking a little wan and thin and gaunt these days. And he comes walking in and he's looking around and he looks at us sitting there. He looks back up at the bar and he goes, "Is the bar closed?" And I was like, "Yes, for a special meeting today. Are you here to join us?" That guy left so much rubber off his sneakers as he turned and peeled out of there that it was crazy. And remember those two bikers that I was telling you about, Reaper and
Yeah.
Outcast? Well, my
Mhm.
boots that I'm wearing in this scene, I left the laces untied because it was funnier. He was sloppier, he was funnier, and they're hanging around the back of the Holiday House for one of the scenes we're filming. And I go walking back there, and they're like, "Hey, hey, your boots are untied." I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, I know. Frank's got it. You wouldn't wear them like that. Do you know why? No, no, why? Because they'd get caught up in the machinery and you'd get sucked down. It would rip you off the bike and tear off your limbs. Like we could tear off your limbs for this kind of an image. And I'm like, really great talking with you guys. I'm going to hang out over here for a while. So they did get cast as extras in the scene. And I learned a lesson about boots. I never tied them up because, frankly, as Joseph Bologna says, trying to be Sid Caesar in My Favorite Year, my business, you don't cut funny.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, you definitely don't want to cut funny, especially in a movie that is such an out there tour de force of comedic performances from people.
It's like we're not necessarily doing a documentary.
Well, and no one is doing small performances.
Right. Well,
No.
speaking of small performances, Selma Blair there wearing her chest that she wore for this, these prosthetic breasts that basically stand out to here. They were very realistic looking, had the Teamsters going nuts every time she'd come around. But frankly, I was more gaga of her when she showed up looking like Selma Blair with just the short bobbed black haircut and the way she was. And we get on the elevator at Flight 3 the first day. And I've interviewed celebrities. I used to work in radio, and people are people to me. And I'm happily married guy. But she sits there in that elevator and she suddenly looks over at me and goes, so you're the one playing my bow in this, huh? And she leans over into me and very calm and cool, I go, uh-huh. You know, couldn't speak or anything. But then when they put her in this wig and put her in these prosthetics and put her in all this stuff, I forget about that. And we're just having these great conversations. You know, she's got this really wicked, dark sense of humor. She's very funny, very funny. Well, there's a scene in the Holiday House where she has to take these things and hit me upside the head with them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And they do this scene, and and she's hit me with it. It's like getting hit with basically a couple of soccer popper balloons with nipples on the end of each one. They finish the take, and the first AD goes, "You want to get a safety on that?" And John Waters goes, "No, those things are too expensive to waste on Wes's head." They're like $50,000 to have those things made, which was crazy. But I mean, Selma might as well have had a 1.5 to 2 foot restraining order against anybody around her. It was like a force field against the real Selma Blair. She was wearing a parka basically. And you know the scene of you guys have seen the film, so you know the scene in the nursing home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around and Tracy picks up that water bottle. Now, do you know how she does that, right?
In the context of the movie or in reality?
In reality. In the context of the movie, it's one thing.
I don't know. I know the context of the movie. I'm not sure what the reality is.
In reality is they had a pair of basically underpants with a metal plate in them, which, by the way, just has to be really comfortable to wear around.
Right.
Yeah.
I was thinking that.
Yeah. And then they had this super powerful magnet in the cap of the bottle. So when she goes down, click, and she can stand up and lift it. So they had to test it out in the middle of Flight 3 in Baltimore. So she's standing out in the parking lot and she raises up her skirt and she goes down, click, picks that bottle up, and suddenly huge applause from the gas station across the street. The guys are all over there going, yeah. And they're like, let's take this back inside.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the kind of creativity I love hearing about on these episodes, because like when you were like, oh, it's a metal plate, I'm like, so like a magnet or something? And you confirm, like, yeah, look, that's perfect.
I mean, just imagine if you don't take those things off and you go to somebody's car or something like that, and you're picking up stuff left and right. A lot of fun stuff. Really enjoyed the shoot. The Pete Papa George, who at one point plays the blind man in the movie, is also a musician. He's a guitar player. He goes around to all sorts of Irish pubs in town and he sings. And Pete's a good pal. And I told him, I said, you should bring your guitar with you. And he goes, well, yeah, it's out in the car. I said, go get it. He said, what for? I said, we're going to go take your guitar by and we're going to go say hi to Chris. And he goes, well, I don't know if I want to impose. I said, everybody's very friendly around here. So we went over. He grabs his guitar. I see Chris and I say, hey, Chris, actually, before we even grabbed his guitar, I see Chris and he'd been in there shooting and he'd seen Pete. And I said, you know, Pete is an excellent guitarist and he plays around town. He's hugely popular in the DC area. And he goes, really? And then Chris looks over at him and goes, "Did you bring your guitar?" And Pete's like, "Yeah." It's the second person asked him, brought his guitar. He says, "Well, grab it, bring it to my trailer." Pete goes, grabs the guitar, heads to the trailer. Now, I could have gone in with him, but I didn't because that was his moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he went in for like a couple of hours. He and Chris just sat there and played and sang and chatted and yacked. And that was the kind of atmosphere it was. Tracy at one point said she loved Elvis Presley. Always wanted one of those TCB, taking care of business things. So I reached out to Graceland and I ordered 4 of the necklaces, taking care of business necklaces. And I gave one to each member of the Stickles family, Chris, Selma, and Tracy. And I gave one to Johnny because Johnny was the leader of our gang. Now, you see, Dave Moretti and I were in the same gang together, right? We were all members of the Apostles. And I was number 11. Tracy ended up being apostle number 12. So when we'd send notes to each other back and forth, we'd like, "Hello there, fellow apostle." So Dave is one of my fellow apostles, and we always will be. And I have to say, one of the very coolest things about having been in a John Waters movie is that you end up on his Christmas card list. If you're one of his main characters, you get an alliterative name and you don't get left off. You get these cards every year, and they're sometimes sacrilegious, sometimes just hysterical. A couple of times they've been ornaments. One of them was just this ornament with his face on it. But my favorite one was the very first one we got the first year, and it's a clear ball that says "Season's Greetings, John Waters," written in red on the outside of it. And on the inside, a giant dead cockroach. And I take that and I hang it right up underneath of the angel's skirt so the light will shine down on it. And it makes my wife just so happy.
Oh man. Yeah, that sounds like a John Waters kind of move.
It's awesome. It's awesome. There have been so many cool things along the way that I see this address come across every year. And it's like, ooh, and Kim's like, "Don't open it till I get home." She wants to see it too. And some people put them online and put them up and show them and all this, but I don't do that. That's just a little something.
Yeah.
In one year, it was a lottery. It was like a lotto ticket. You could
Oh,
scratch
scratcher?
it and win
Yeah.
an actual prize. But I didn't want to scratch it. I kept it as
And
is.
this was a custom one, not just like a lottery ticket.
No, it's
Yeah.
he had them printed up and made. It looks like a real lotto ticket, but it's a John Waters thing. And I could have won some really cool John Waters stuff. It could still be on there that I might have won really cool John Waters stuff, but I didn't want to scratch it off. The card itself meant too much to me to deface it, you know?
See, now that's really cool. And I'm thinking about like what I could do if I custom printed lottery tickets like that for like some kind of like promotion for the show or something. Like
It would be great. And then you have people who won't use them because, like me, they're a nerd and they're like, "Don't take it out of the package. It'll ruin it. Don't play with it. I know it's a toy, but keep it in the box. For God's sake."
man, just awesome stuff. Like such a font of creativity that man is.
He is.
Yeah.
He is. And he may have another movie coming up. He's getting close to it. He had one he was going to do called Fruitcake, which was really cool. And trying to get a movie greenlit. The sad fact of the matter is, because of Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake, he was not able to get another movie greenlit because he was not able to turn the contractual movie in the way he wanted it to. And it ended up losing money because it was NC-17. And the target audience didn't get a chance to come out and see it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the dirty shame of all of it. This man's a legend. He's got his own pop.
For listeners at home, Wes is bringing up one of the pop figurines of John Waters. We were talking about a man who has left a mark on the cultural zeitgeist of this nation.
For sure.
He's carrying a little pink flamingo, which is fine because you think of pink flamingos, but if he was carrying a chicken with its neck cut, that would be pink flamingo's thing too. But I love the fact that Divine, actually, they followed that dog around for a while till it finally let out what John referred to as just this measly, sickly little turd, and then Divine ate it. But then later that night, Divine's calling up like the emergency room going, "Am I going to die?" but he's able to get people to do things for movies that they necessarily wouldn't do. Now, when you watch The Dirty Shame, did either of you watch it on the DVD?
So I
No.
definitely watched the NC-17 version, but it was the Amazon download version. But I know a couple of the scene changes. I mean, for one thing, you're Fat Fuck Frank in it, but for another, there's quite a bit of penis. So I know which
Yeah.
version I was looking at.
Yeah, there's a bit, but there's also the bottle scene is not in the neuter edition. They have to cut that portion out. The thing about the DVD is that it also has a documentary, which runs almost as long as the movie itself, and it's called All the Dirt on a Dirty Shame. And it is similar to what you've read about John Waters before. Have you ever read his book Shock Value, where he talks about the beginnings of his career?
I have not.
It's fantastic. It's a fun read. Well, verbally, half of this, All the Dirt on a Dirty Shame, tells a lot of those same stories. And there are different things in there, and they interview all the cast. So you see me looking like me as opposed to looking like Frank. And they filmed me while I was out in LA. I was visiting in LA. So they took me to some house, and we're in the backyard doing the interview. A lot of the other folks did their interviews back in Baltimore, but I did mine out in LA. And there was somebody who kept doing landscaping right nearby, and they had to go pay the guy off to go come back another time. And they were talking about it and complaining about it. And they said, you know what? There are people in LA who claim to be landscapers who have not had a real job in years. What they do is they follow the movie companies around, see where they're setting up, wait for them to start filming, then go to some yard where nobody's at the time and start doing loud lawn work so that the movie company will come over and pay them to stop for a while.
Oh my God, that's wild.
So people come home and see half their lawn mowed, half their tree cut. And it's because these rogue landscapers are just following the movie companies around, making enough noise that they'll be paid to stop working.
I have a friend who is a landscaper who I could believe him doing that. Like that, like, that seems like the kind of move, and he would feel very smart about it.
Well, my favorite thing that I got to say in there, which I thought was fun, was talking about all the, I said, you learn about all sorts of different things, all sorts of sex acts in this movie. It's very educational. Like, I never knew that rim job equals divorce. So, but it was fun to do that. It's a fun little documentary. So if you ever get a chance to do it, and the thing is, you can find the DVD fairly inexpensively now. We used to show it sometimes at MagFest at a convention. After my late night panel, we'd sort of adjourn, everything would shut down, and then we'd break out a bottle of scotch, and a bunch of us would sit around and watch the movie. And I wouldn't just watch the movie, though. I would enjoy watching other people watching the movie because I knew what was going to be coming up. So watching the expressions of people as certain things came up, I thought was pretty hysterical.
That's awesome. Man, yeah, this movie has such a cult following now, and it's really wild to see this just crazy work that has lingered on and touches people.
Yeah, well, you got to be careful what you say when you start talking about touching people,
Right.
because remember the slogan of this was "Let's go sexing." There were buttons that were going around all the time. People walking around, we put on those buttons, "Let's go sexing."
Wes, honestly, that sounds like a pretty good idea. I think we should probably take a break, and while that break is going on, why don't we all just go sexing?
Woohoo!
Let's go sexing!
Are you tired of watching your beloved characters being tortured by careless authors?
Are you sick of feeling like they could have swapped out all of the painful action and the plot would remain untouched? Subscribe to Books That Burn, the fortnightly book review podcast focusing on fictional depictions of trauma.
We assume that the characters' reactions are reasonable and focus on how badly or well they were served by their authors.
Join us for our minor character spotlights, main character discussions, and favorite non-traumatic things in the dark books we love.
Find us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And we're back. So, Wes, thank you so much for bringing all this insight into the actual shoot of this movie. It seemed like just a wild time, like a ton of fun. Obviously, there's the production hurdles that are associated with any kind of low budget movie. Like this was only 15 million. And then, the fact of the subject matter kind of not playing that well with censors at the time and sort of like screwing it over. However, I did want to bring some notes that I had. So I referenced this book on screenplays that Waters has a chapter in, and it has stuck with me more than any other chapter in that book, even before we talked about this episode. And even aside from the fact that, like, again, hometown hero who I have met and who I've randomly seen on flights that I was taking out of BWI. And like, like if you're a Maryland person, you're like, who John Waters is. But the chapter he wrote on A Dirty Shame, I always find really fascinating. And so I just kind of wanted to talk about like the John Waters process.
And tell us the name of the book again, because I think we're all going to want to check that out.
Yeah. So the book is Screenplays by David S. Cohen. And the subtitle is How 25 Screenplays Made It to Theater Near You for Better or Worse. And so there's a large portion of it that is about the actual selling process of a screenplay. So a lot of them are about spec scripts. And then some of them are about the actual various things that sort of led to people like getting a movie greenlit. But the Waters section, which is directly on A Dirty Shame, I thought was really interesting. So he talks about his general writing process, which is that he is very disciplined. He opens every day writing from 8 to noon. And that's just how he is. And like everyone knows not to like bother him during that time. But then when talking about actually like developing a movie, he kind of goes from the process differently than I would expect from most people. And it's one that I really love, which is that he'll go to the neighborhood where he wants to shoot a thing or to set the location of the thing, if it's a little bit more abstract in that whole thing, but at least like this is where it's supposed to be set.
In the vibe.
Yeah, the vibe, exactly. And he tries to feel out the genre of the piece and honestly starts with a title. And I love that approach to screenwriting. So when I write stage pieces, I always do a set design before I write anything beyond like just a basic outline, because I need to know like how I'm going to like describe the blocking just so I know it's possible. If I don't have that, then I can't conceive of like what I'm working on. And I love that title comes first approach to it all. And then I found this really interesting, which is that he writes longhand. Like he doesn't actually type up any of his stuff. He just has notebooks all over his house that he'll just write notes and then will cut it up directly and like paste it into a notebook that he gives his assistant to type up.
Basically, just like the Unabomber.
Kind of like that. And he complains that airports are annoying for him because flying, he can't bring scissors with him because it's a necessary part of his writing process. And I just love that approach to things. He actually makes physical cuts to his script. But then what I found really interesting also is that he doesn't write spec scripts when going in to try to get money for his pieces. He goes into pitch meetings with a detailed treatment that will have dialogue and have a lot of information. Like Dirty Shame was a 17-page long treatment, but he won't have the script. He goes in and he comes with a fake ad campaign that he'll do for the piece. And I thought, this is fascinating. So he'll come with like, all right, here is how you could sell this movie. Even if they're not going to use this ad campaign, he'll bring a pitch deck.
He is selling the movie. He's running an ad for the people that are making it.
Right, and showing them how they can sell it, that it is a sellable product. So, for example, with this, the tagline he had for it was, "What happened to Sylvia Stickles was a dirty shame." And like had this whole like ad campaign laid out from that sort of premise so that the execs can see like, oh yeah, this is a marketable film because we can see very literally how it's marketed. And then once he's convinced them to go for it, that's when he writes the script. I find that a really fascinating process that honestly speaks to me. I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea. Like that all makes sense. Like
it's fantastic. I mean, and his book writing is very different, I would imagine, because when he sits down to write, it's not always the screenplays. He's got so many wonderful books. He did Car Sick, the book about him hitchhiking, and he literally hitchhiked across America. I forget what the name of the band was, but there was a band driving down the road in the middle of the country, in the middle of nowhere, and they go, that guy looks kind of like John Waters, who's hitchhiking back there. And they're like, could it be? I don't know. They went back, picked him up, and it was John Waters. He rode with him for several hundred miles. They had a great time. But I mean, doesn't that seem like in this day and age a good way for John Waters to die?
Or for the band to die, one or the other.
Need a band or to die, one or the other. He rolled the dice well on that one. It came up sevens. So
Right. I mean, he takes some interesting swings, but one thing he also emphasizes is never turn in your first draft. And this was
Right.
a line that I thought was really fascinating, which is keep rewriting until you start putting back in what you already cut. That's when you know it's finished. Where when it's like, okay, well, maybe I should add this scene back in. Oh no, if I'm doing that, then like I'm definitely done. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. You got to kill your baby sometimes. I remember the novelist Peter Straub, the horror novelist Peter Straub,
yeah,
did some things with Stephen King, and I got a chance to interview him once. And I was talking to him. He read one of my stories, and he liked it. And he said, "You got to go through. You'll cut some of this down." And he said, "I suggest you get a little glass of wine, just enough to just slightly anesthetize you, not so that you're drunk, but just a little bit so that you can kill your babies and give yourself a little distance from your own story and be ruthless. You can always put some stuff back in if you need to, but the quickest way through the story sometimes is the quickest way. Sometimes people allow their editors to do that. But John seems to have his own internal self editor. There are other people who edit him for all other different reasons, as we have seen with the review boards and things of that
yeah,
sort. One of my favorite stories about A Dirty Shame, because he wanted to get back to the kind of movie he used to make when he was making Female Trouble and Polyester and Pink Flamingos. And he had started doing stuff like Hairspray and Serial Mom and Crybaby, and it was a lot more mainstream. And his parents were actually getting to the point where they were kind of proud of him. And he told his mother, he says, "Well, mother, I'm making a movie that's very similar to my old films. It's called A Dirty Shame. It's about sex addicts. Will you be coming out to see it?" She goes, "Yeah, unless I die first, I guess." So, but they were both there. His mother and his father, very buttoned up, very nice. And they were at the premiere at the Senator, showed up at the museum afterwards, this fine Baltimore Museum of Art, where we had the party later on. And that one was a little more sedate and a little more formal, even though it was in Baltimore, than the one that was in New York City. The one in New York City, his mother and father were
right.
not there.
So we could get away
So
with the
Right.
sweaty, glittery people.
that was not John's idea. That was just, people were like, "Oh, John Waters coming. He got the glitter and the sweat."
Yeah, so it makes me think of this note that they made about this movie specifically, that while the NC-17 rating was bad from the standpoint of recouping investment, it was, however, protective for the production, because unlike Pink Flamingos, which actually was unrated for a really long time, being explicitly NC-17 kind of immunized the production from attacks by like the indecency crusaders, because it's like, well, what are you going to say? Like, it is already rated, not just R, it's rated NC-17. Like, it's like super like closed off from everyone. What are you going to do? Like, it's not like being exposed to kids.
In a way, it's
Yeah.
really too bad, because the neuters in the film very much are a reflection of those people who are the decency crusaders.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their own big bag of neuroses, Case. Everybody. It isn't just the people who are talking about the sex addicts, it's the ones that are railing against it, who really want to join the party but are afraid to.
Man, there certainly comes off like this like tone in the movie of like, yep, Waters is probably pretty familiar with these types of people who are just going to rave about like how much a thing is a dirty shame.
Well, the thing is, John coming up with some of these things, even some of those things for John, he was like, "Ooh," you know? There's a scene where they roll a thing across the floor, a big can of something or other, bounces off Selma, bounces off a thing, rolls across the floor. I slip on it, knock something else over at Selma, and it hits her in the head, and she turns back into a sex addict. Well, the scene where I slip in the little shopping mart, I went over and cut under my arm on one of the things, and it put a slice there, and there was blood and it was bleeding. They were like, "Is everything all right?" I said, "Yeah, it's okay, just a little bit." And I went like this, lifted up with the blood, and John was like, "Ew." I grossed out John Waters. So that was pretty cool.
That is a testament that very few people could ever do.
I remember he did a story, an article once. I think it was in Spy magazine, and then it was in one of his books later. I think it was a gathering of some of his short stories, but it's called 101 Things I Hate. And it's a story of his day. And as he's going through his day, every time he comes across something he hates with a passion, little parentheses with the number in it until he gets up to 101. And one of them was Brussels sprouts, which he called little green balls from hell. And I said, "Do you still hate Brussels sprouts?" And he said, "No, no, someone took it as a challenge. And I found out it's all in the way they're prepared. So sometimes I like them." So he has an open mind, at least for
I
Brussels
was gonna say,
sprouts.
let just introduce him to the way my wife prepares them, and I think we could change his mind.
I know somebody did. Somebody convinced him to palate one of those little green balls from hell that he used to talk about. Some of his stuff just makes me laugh out loud. If you get a chance to read Shock Value, I'd say definitely that's a must read. That's the one of the first must reads. If you want to learn about John Waters and how he began in this business, read Shock Value. And if you want to hear a documentary that talks about it, it's a lot of fun. Get A Dirty Shame on DVD and watch All the Dirt on a Dirty Shame. You'll hear from some of the original Dreamlanders coming back in there. Mary Vivian Pierce made a small little role, even though she'd had a bit of a stroke, but she still made an appearance in A Dirty Shame. Mink Stoll, counterculture icon, Mink Stoll, loves Maxwell House coffee and always teased me about my frou-frou flavored coffees and my Mr. Fancy Coffee, because I love things with a little hazelnut or a little something here. I got something with a little hazelnut and raspberry. And she's like, "Just give me the Maxwell House." I love her. I got to go out and hang out with her in LA, and she took me around to a couple of places. We had dinner. She is remarkable. I love her. And I loved working with John. I go to see him live speaking whenever I can. We're not like friends. I would love that. I would love to be a friend. But the fact of the matter is, I guess, one of the next best things. I'm always going to be his fat fuck Frank. We'll always have triple F.
Yeah, or quadruple F. Fat fuck Frank the fan.
Yeah. And this hat, by the way, this hat right here is actually, I had to get a separate, different one because the original hat that I wore for the first start of the shoot belonged to Johnny, a guy who was one of the prop masters on the set. And Johnny was in The Wire, and he used this hat on The Wire like this, open like this. So if you watch the season 2 of The Wire and you see this hat, it's the very same hat because Van Smith, the ugly expert, the dirt expert for John Waters, who sadly passed and greatly missed, he walked up one day, he's trying to figure out what Frank is going to wear. And he sees him over there and he walks up and he snatches the hat right off the top of his head. And he goes, "Hey," and he goes, "I'm going to be using this for the next month and a half." And he takes this robo cap and it becomes Frank's. And since it was open in The Wire, I just buttoned it up because to me, it looked like a cross between a skull cap and the kind of thing that Hunts Hall used to wear in the Bowery Boys. There's an old.
I don't know the Bowery Boys.
Know,
I know the name, but that's all I could say.
Came about in the 1930s, and they went all the way through the 50s, and they were huge through there. Hunts Hall and Leo Gorsey, and today it's forgotten. But I remember watching them, the old black and white Dead End Kids. There were the Dead End Kids. There were a bunch of other names, but he had that hat that he wore turned up like that. So I remembered that, and I did the same thing with Frank. Now, Frank wore that hat. He also wore a bandana with a pair of goggles on it that Van came up with. Van coming out and covering me in filth and dirt. Van would take people. You ever see somebody smiling at John Waters film and it looks like their teeth are just disgusting? It's because before every take, he'd dry their mouth out and make them chew up Doritos or potato chips, and they'd have all this stuff still stuck in their teeth. And when you film it, it looks gross.
That explains so much, actually.
Yeah.
He was the filth expert. He was John's dirt expert, and the look of the films from the very beginning all the way through A Dirty Shame have a lot to do with him. Also, Vincent Periano, who did all the set design. And now in A Dirty Shame, what does that entail? That entails walking around this neighborhood here with a lot of putty and a lot of things that match bark and putting breasts and vaginas and things of that sort into the trees to make it look like, where a branch had been grown and cut off, but they're very
Right.
explicit. And I don't know if they left those up there when they left the neighborhood, you know? What is that going to do to the property values? You know? It's a lovely house. It's got central air conditioning and vagina trees.
I'm going to be honest, I didn't even really think about it. I just assumed like, oh, they just like happened to find like the perfect trees. And now that you're saying, I'm like, no, that makes more sense.
Yeah, and so together they go out there with these bushes and they carve bushes into giant penises and balls. And then they leave the neighborhood. And it reminds me of the scene with Mink Stoll. They're cutting some of these things out, going, the plants are growing all dirty. Now imagine that's the people in the neighborhood going out later on and having to neuter those trees just a little bit. And the dog's looking over the tree going, man, I
Yep.
feel you. Did the same thing to me.
Man, yeah, this is a wild movie, and I'm so glad that we had the chance to bring you on and talk about it for a bit. Before we wrap up, do you have anything you want to talk about that you've got coming up that, give your plugs? Like what have you got going on?
Well, the Capitol season just ended. Next year, hopefully, I'm back for my 25th year as the announcer for the Washington Capitals, for the arena announcer. We've got Farragut Forward coming out sometime this summer. So if you want to see one of the very best Star Trek fan films that have ever been made, that's where you're going to be wanting to watch. I have a film called Sanctuary, short film called Sanctuary, that's going to be making its debut at the Holly Shorts Film Festival and start hitting festivals all around town. Maybe filming something a little bit later this summer. And right now, we are in the midst of a big charity drive. It is called Voiceapalooza. If you go to voiceapalooza.com, you'll be able to find out what you can do there. We have video game voice actors, streamers from hundreds of streamers from all around the globe that are putting together these fun activities. We're doing fun for funds for the Alzheimer's Association. So we're going to try to drop the gloves on Alzheimer's. I've lost my mother, my grandmother. I have an aunt who's suffering from it. Everybody's been touched by this, and we are fighting back. And every little bit helps. So if you get a chance, if you want to just make a donation, go to voiceapalooza.com. But we're going to be streaming all the way through mid-June. And we're going to have things like the Elder Scrolls Online. We're going to be coming out and talking about the new Gold Road expansions coming out, which I do have some voices in. Fallout 76 has some new stuff coming out, which I'm also reprising the Protectrons and a couple of new characters in that. And there are some other things in the pipeline game-wise that I can't talk about right now, but I love what I do, Case. To sink myself and disappear into a character that isn't me. And I love it when, like in Fallout, right now, it's been very hot because of the TV series. And people are certainly realizing that I play probably about 35 different characters in Fallout. And they didn't know that they were all me. And that makes me happier than anything. It makes me so happy to be able to do so many different characters that people don't know are you. I also am doing a class. I teach video game voice acting through Theater Lab DC. So if you go to Theater Lab DC, or go to theaterlab.org, I think it is. You can look for the class. They only take 10 per semester. They start again in June. And I've had students from all around the globe come in. We just went out to Amsterdam to do a celebration for the 10th anniversary of Elder Scrolls Online. And I was shocked to see how many people in the EU are huge video game fans and still follow this stuff. We had a line. Tommy Earl Jenkins and Alex Wilton Reagan were there with me, and we had a line of about 1,000 people lining up just to get autographs on Elder Scrolls Online stuff. And being in Amsterdam, dude, I would have loved to have stopped at one of the coffee shops. They're not about coffee. If you watch the beginning of Pulp Fiction, you'll know what a coffee shop is over there. But I couldn't go in there because I had to use my brain, and I'm pretty certain that I wouldn't be able to after that. But I did get myself a hot, fresh stroopwafel made in Amsterdam, which was just delightful. And I came home with a ton of Amsterdam Gouda cheese of all different types. And the Shea Goreth character in me who goes, cheese for everyone. Cheese for no one, except for me.
God, I have often described you as living your best life and just constantly like in awe of the existence that you have carved out for yourself.
You just follow your heart and let your head set the directions and realize that in this life, if you don't follow what you love and you wait for someone else to bring it to you, what are you waiting for? Go for it. There's a lot of rejection in everything, Case, right?
Yeah.
We get rejected all the time. You get turned down, you get shot down, but that doesn't mean you don't get right back up again. I love to live the motto of like Galaxy Quest, never give up,
Never surrender.
never surrender. Or certain songs, I get knocked down, but I get up again. No, you're never going to keep me down. Although sometimes down feels comfy. I'll stay here for a little while and I'll lick my wounds, but then you're going to get back up. And people look at the successes that somebody has. And dude, that's just the tip of a shiny iceberg coming out of the water, because underneath, miles and miles and miles of experience and rejection and pain and heartbreak and whatever. The fact of the matter is, you do it because you love it.
Yeah.
You have to. You have to. And if you love it, not a day is wasted on your journey.
That is great advice, and honestly, a thing that it perpetuates this show. Like we love doing the show, and it's been a big part of why we've been able to stick it out for now 165 episodes. So, Wes, thank you for coming on to this one. Where can people find you and follow you?
If you go onto Twitter, I'll call it that.
For the record, we all call it that. No one calls it anything else.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And if you're looking for me on Instagram, it's just Wes Johnson. And I'm under Wes Johnson Actor on Facebook, and on TikTok also Wes Johnson Actor. So those are the places you can find me. And I hope you do. And I hope you go by voiceapalooza.com and join us on one of these streams that we're going to be doing over the next month. Seriously, come in and have some fun. We're going to have some laughs. And if you can even donate the amount of a cup of coffee, it all builds up. It all helps somebody who's going through the worst. I mean, it's the worst thing in the world to lose someone before you lose them.
Yeah.
To be a caregiver for some of these people. And you know what? We're getting close, Case, because they've come up with a medication now that if you give it early enough, it will help keep somebody themselves and retain their memory and who they are for longer.
Yeah.
Well, again, Wes, thank you so much for coming on the show. People should check out Voiceapalooza. People should check out your class. People should check out all the stuff you've been working on. Let me know next time you're doing the MagFest screening, because I would definitely want to be there for that one.
Absolutely. And you and I have to hit the Celebrity Deli at some point.
Yes. In the meantime, Sam, where can people find you and follow you?
They can find me occasionally when I remember our Discord exists there, and they can find me here. And if they have any complaints about, I don't think I said anything that could, actually be a complaint tonight.
Well, I'm sure there's some decency crusaders who are coming after us for this episode.
I mean, yeah,
There's
but
a couple of tight knots and some panties out there right now.
But they can complain to you.
Yeah, that's true. If they want to come for someone related to the show, they should come for me. On most of the platforms, you can find me at Case Aiken, except for Instagram, where I am holding on to my AIM screen name from high school for dear life, and that is Quetzalcoatl 5, because I was a pretentious mythology nerd and also a Legion of Superheroes nerd. So find me there. That way. You can also find me on Coffee or Ko-Fi or whatever it is, KO-FI.
Is it Amsterdam coffee?
You know what? It would be better if it is. But yeah, if people want to directly support the production of this show, find my Coffee account. So ko-fi.com/Case Aiken. You can actually become a subscriber and you will get shout outs on the show, like Micah McCaw, former guest of the show, who is awesome and has become my first subscriber. So that's pretty dope. But yeah, you can subscribe. You can get to suggest episode topics, get shout outs on social media. So that's a cool thing you can do. You can also find the Discord server that Sam discussed, either in the show notes or at our website, certainpov.com. And you can come interact with us directly. It's a really fun time. The activity on the Discord server has been way up there without going so far that it's like hard to really track the conversation. I find some Discord servers are just too active, but ours is a good pace. Like I'm really happy to see all the threads on favorite music, discussions about video games, all the comic book conversations that have been going on, and the movie chats have gotten really good on there. So come check it out. Come hang out with us. We don't bite unless you want us to, in which case we can talk about it.
With consent. It's always
Yes,
with consent.
safe and with consent. That's the big part.
There's one website that I want to put together soon that I've got the URL for, and it's called fakemoviecoffee.com. And I want to start putting together clips of every film or TV show where somebody comes walking in carrying what are obviously empty cups of coffee. Hey,
there's
Bob,
no weight
how's
to
it
this
going?
thing. Yeah.
You could probably make like a 12-hour compilation of the Gilmore Girls alone.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Leonardo DiCaprio every time going, fake movie coffee.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it'd be like the Mr. Skin, but for specifically physics-defying coffee cups.
Yeah, it's like coffee porn of some sort.
But yeah, so you can find all of that at certainpov.com. You'll find more episodes of this show. You'll find other great shows. I'm going to shout out Books That Burn specifically this time. Books That Burn is a great conversation about the characters inside books and the terrible trauma that authors put them through from the perspective of the characters. And so it's a really fun literary discussion podcast. So check that one out. Great time. They've been on the show before talking about bed knobs and broomsticks. So if you want to go back to that episode, you can, check them all out.
So fun, guys. I really appreciate you having me on. I love talking about this stuff and movies.
Yeah,
in
no, I love having you on. I wish we could have you on for every episode. Like next time. Sam, what have we got coming up next time?
Well, next time, we'll be talking about Highlander 2, The Quickening. But until then, if you enjoyed this, pass it on.
Thanks for listening to Certain Point of View's Another Pass podcast. Don't miss an episode. Just subscribe and review the show on iTunes. Just go to certainpov.com.
Another Pass is a Certain POV production. Our hosts are Sam Elisea and Case Aiken. The show is edited by Jeff Moonen. Our logo and episode art is by Case Aiken. Our intro theme is by Vin Macri, and our outro theme is by Matt Brogan.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.